Can atheists be moral? Let's take a look at Jimmy Snow's video to learn what he has to say about the question.
I have heard this posed several different ways. Here's some of the most common ways. The Bible, or insert any holy book here, teaches us what's right and what's wrong. Without it, mankind would have never become civil.
Without God, what's there to stop a person from raping and murdering?
Without God, everything's permitted.
So already he's characterizing all Christians as some sort of fundamentalist Southern Baptist, probably because this is his religious background. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but not all Christians believe that the morality is exclusively dependent on the Bible. In fact, the Bible itself contradicts this view. As Romans 2:14 through 15 says, when Gentiles who have not the law do by nature the things contained in the law, these not having the law are a law unto themselves, who show the work of the law written on their hearts. Now, there is an interpretation of this view that says that hearts refers to our emotions, and that somehow this is saying our emotions guide us on what's right and wrong. This is incorrect. Historically, people thought that the heart was the seat of the intellect, and so actually this refers to our ability to discover what is moral using our intellect. As the Catechism of the Catholic Church states, the natural law is written and engraved in the soul of each and every man, because it is human reason ordaining him to do good and forbidding him to sin. Historically, the Christian position has not been that you get all your morals from the Bible, but the most fundamental basis of morality is the natural law theory of morality, which, by the way, is a philosophical position that actually originated from Aristotle and Plato, who weren't even Christians.
So let me start with the simple question of where do I get my morality if it's not coming from God or a holy book? And that's actually a pretty simple answer to me. I base my moral beliefs on empathy, compassion, but also logic and reason.
So emotions. Yes, I know he says reason, but in reality, reason is only a secondary tool for secularists these days. What he means is that atheists feel good about X, X is good. Atheists feel bad about X, X is bad. I'm sorry, but this is just crazy. Just because something makes your feelers feel bad doesn't mean it's immoral. This is the most childish idea of morality possible, and yes, it does lead to immoral actions, because all a person has to do is feel good about doing immoral things, and by these standards, it's a good thing for that person to do. It's totally moronic.
Take the 10 Commandments, for example. There's only a few good ones in there. Don't kill, don't steal, don't bear false witness. And these are ones that other societies have figured out. But the first few of them are all about how insecure God is and that you need to recognize him above all. There isn't actually anything objectively moral that makes you a better person because you keep the Sabbath day holy.
Wrong. The reason we're supposed to focus on God is because God is the good itself. Check out my video, A Brief Argument for Christianity, to see the reasons why this is the case. God doesn't ask us to worship him because he gains something from it. God is incapable of gaining anything because God is perfect. It is to ensure we are properly oriented towards what is good, and just because your feelers aren't in line with that doesn't mean it has nothing to do with morality. Follow the natural reasoning.
There are plenty of people who do whatever they want on Sunday or whatever your Sabbath is, and the rest of the week and that day are still good people. But under the context of religion, like the 10 Commandments, don't kill, that was specifically directed to don't kill other Jews. Shortly after the 10 Commandments are given, you have these commandments of massacres, to go and kill entire groups of people and take their children and take their daughters and their wives.
This is absolute nonsense. Yes, the Israelites killed people in the context of war and under the command of God, according to the Bible. None of the Abrahamic faiths, however, have ever interpreted this to mean it's okay to just kill anyone you want as long as it isn't a Jew. No one. Ironically, the only people who use God commanding the Israelites to kill people as a justification for murder are atheists, who use this as an excuse for abortions. And this is very typical of atheists. They take these outlandish interpretations of the Bible no one in history has ever used and attack Christianity based on them. Or they take an example of a wild, wacky banana man who denies evolution and debunk that person. Why not try a more difficult target? You absolute cowards.
We have learned that women are far more capable beings than we ever gave them credit for in the past. Especially on a physical and intellectual level, women can far surpass the expectations and really limitations we put on them in the past. They're also more capable of things like self-reliance and independence and just overall kick-buttness than we ever gave them credit for.
Okay, the claim was not that women are incapable of doing anything. What they said was that women tend to let their emotions guide them more than reason. That doesn't mean women can't overcome that or that all women are like that, but it's a tendency people claim women have. And I hate to say it, but society isn't really helping with this by all of a sudden turning to empathy and compassion as the basis of morality. People literally saying today that whether men are men and women are women is purely based on emotions. I mean, seriously, if you want to prove that people were wrong about the influence of women on society, maybe stop setting up emotions as the entire basis of your worldview.
But that's because we created these societies around these male-centric models and religions that put men at the top and women equivalent to property. That is why, in the ridiculous commandment about coveting, in the list of types of property is included thy neighbor's wife.
Again, a completely ridiculous interpretation no Jew or Christian has ever used. Feminism has only been a major movement in, the last 100, 200 years? We have texts from Christians and Jews going back thousands of years, and none of the mainstream theologians, at least, would agree that women are property. St. Thomas Aquinas, for example, followed Aristotle, explicitly saying that women are not slaves of men. They have a higher status than that. This progressive view of history that says women were treated like property is simply a mythology invented to fit a preconceived narrative.
You have these people who are apologists that are pretending that the books don't mean what they say, when they say it, as they say it. They put an incredible amount of energy into adapting and reinterpreting the words of these books to make it fit into modern society. Well, if we're talking about morality and where it comes from, why do these books need to fit into the modern day at all? If we get our morals from these books, why are we fitting them in?
We don't. We get our morality from natural law. As I said, no one interprets the Bible without bringing their philosophical basis. We don't read the Bible like a 5-year-old. Ironically, you're interpreting Christianity and the Bible based on your progressive atheistic preconceptions. It just turns out that the Christian way of interpreting the scriptures is based on natural reason, and yours is based on emotions.
You want to tell me that without a Bible or a Quran or a holy book, I can't have morality? The Bible is a moral compass when it absolutely says slavery is okay, and it even gives special instructions how to participate in the market, including how to sell your own family members.
And how does he know that slavery is wrong? His feelers hurt when he thinks about it? Oh, well, guess what? For thousands of years, people's feelers didn't hurt when they thought about slavery. All cultures had slavery for thousands of years, regardless of the Bible, and no one blinked an eye. The fact that your feelers hurt today isn't because we did a science experiment that proved slavery is wrong. It's because you grew up in a culture that taught you that it's wrong. I'm not going to get into the whole background on slavery and natural law here, but if you want to learn more about it, pick up Right and Reason by Father Austin Fagothi. Basically, what we can determine from reason is that slavery is not intrinsically wrong, but it is only wrong because of the way it tended to be practiced, which is why we are better off without slavery today. Again, because your feelers hurt at that kind of position doesn't mean it's wrong.
I can't have morality because I don't have the book that lays out penalties for homosexuality and teaches people that homosexuality, a totally naturally occurring thing that happens in many more species than humanity, that it is actually a sin and it is worth your contempt.
I know he's probably not consciously aware that he's attempting to employ some sort of natural law by pointing to homosexuality happening in nature, but let me just point out that happens in nature has nothing to do with natural law theory of morality. Cancer happens in nature. That doesn't mean cancer is a good thing. What natural law theory refers to is, as Aristotle put it, essence as a principle of activity. That is, nature is what a thing is as a principle of their activity. Cancer and homosexuality may be something that happens in the woods, but it's contrary to what animals are. Why? Because it prevents animals from fulfilling their natural ends. Cancer prevents animals from living. Homosexuality prevents animals from fulfilling the purpose of sex. They are absolutely not natural in the Aristotelian sense of the word. And since God is the cause of the purposes of things, again, see my video, A Brief Argument for Christianity, for proof of this, intentionally going against the purposes of things is going against the will of God. And God, again, as proven in my other video, is the good itself, which makes it morally wrong.
Now, before I completely wrap up, I do want to address this idea that without God, what's to stop us from raping and murdering? This might be a thing that takes self-reflection to figure out on your part. And while in the moment, it might feel like a good point to make when you're in debate, ask yourself, do you really believe if it weren't for this religious superstition or belief or whatever you want to call it, that if that went away, you would jump straight to the murder and the rape?
No, that's not what I think, but some people do feel like rape and murder is the best thing for them. The question isn't whether I personally feel like rape and murder are wrong, but what logical reason can we give to rapists and murderers for the wrongness of those positions? If it's just based on feelings, then rape and murder could be right for those people if they feel like it is. This is why a position like natural law is important. I may not be able to convince every single person who feels like murdering to stop murdering, but I can explain rationally why a person should not do it. You can't.
Well, I hope that's not the case, but the good news is society did figure this out. And the thing that's going to stop you from raping and murdering is the laws of our nation. You can't. There is a punishment in place, and if you do it, you will be served that punishment.
This isn't sufficient for several reasons. First of all, what if a rapist or murderer feels like they would be better off raping and murdering despite the punishment? Mass murderers who shoot up schools, for example, know they're going to be punished. They often even take their own lives, but they decided it was the best course of action for them. Well then, based on the feelers-based morality, they are doing what's moral for them. Secondly, some people get away with rape and murder. So are those people doing what's best for them? According to the feelers-based morality, yes. They're just doing what makes them feel good. They're living their truth. Finally, for thousands of years, homosexuality has been punished as immoral by all sorts of cultures. Was homosexuality wrong then? Jimmy Snow's going to say no. We were oppressing homosexuals, according to him. It was the majority forcing their backwards emotional reactions of homophobia on the minority. But if we're going to use Jimmy's standards of morality, then it seems like we're doing the same thing for murder and rape. If morality is just what makes your feelers tingle, then it's just the majority's feelers oppressing the minorities. And in this way, you can set up an oppression narrative for anything and make anything legal. You need some objective basis in nature to found morality, not just feelings.
And by the way, the prisons are filled with rapists and murderers who believe in God. So whatever this moral barrier you think that existed because of that holy book, apparently it's not that strong of one.
No one is claiming that religion will stop everyone from doing bad things. The claim is that we have an actual objective basis for morality. I maybe not be able to stop every single murderer from murdering, but I can objectively say whatever pleasure a murderer gets from murdering is objectively not as good as the beatific vision or worth eternal damnation. You can't say that. It's also sort of hilarious that you think prison's going to be the secular solution to murderers, but somehow eternal damnation isn't a sufficient deterrent. Besides, murder is such a low bar for morality. If you look at the acceptance of homosexuality, for example, 94% of atheists think homosexuality, which is objectively moral based on natural law reasoning, should be accepted. This isn't a fluke. Even if atheism doesn't cause people to murder, it sure does lead them to accept sexual degeneracy. Basically, to even begin to argue that atheists are just as moral as everyone else, they have to completely change what being moral means. They say, oh, well, all the things that I like doing are moral because, yeah, I feel good about it. Whether it be homosexuality or sex outside of marriage or whatever, what's to stop them from saying other things aren't immoral? It's only that the majority's feelings agree with it. And what happens when those feelings change? What happens when the majority decides pedophilia isn't wrong? It doesn't feel wrong to them, which was the case at some point in history, just so you know. What's stopping them from saying that it's not immoral if and when that happens? There's no rationally based reason, and that's why atheism is a complete failure when it comes to creating moral people. Thanks for watching.